The result was a dramatic intelligence breakthrough, a list of dozens of names. Gmul's men, Gmul's men tracked down each missing Nazi, finding some wounded in a local hospital where they were being treated under stolen aliases, and then pressured those men to provide more information. They promised each German he would not be harmed if he cooperated, so most did. Then, when they were no longer of use, or when they were no longer useful, Gmul agents shot them and dumped the bodies. There was no sense in leaving them alive to tip the British commands to the Gmul's clandestine mission. Once a particular name had been verified, the second phase began, locating the target and gathering information for the final killing mission. Gicon, who'd been born in Germany, often was assigned that job. No one suspected me, he said. My vocal cords were of Berlin stock. I'd go to the corner grocery store or pub, or even just knock on a door to convey meetings from someone. Most of the time, the people would respond to their real names or recoil into vague silence, which was as good as a confirmation. Once the identification was confirmed, Gicon would track the Germans' movements and provide a detailed sketch of the house where he lived or the area that had been chosen for the abduction. The killers themselves worked in teams of no more than 5 men. When meeting their target, they generally wore British military police uniforms, and they typically told their target they had come to take a man named so-and-so for interrogation. Most of the time, the German came without objection. As one of the unit's soldiers, Shalom Giladi, related in his testimony to the Haganah archive, the Nazi was sometimes killed instantly and other times transported to some remote spot before being killed. In time, we developed quiet, rapid, and efficient methods of taking care of SS men who fell into our hands. He said, as anyone who has ever gotten into a pickup truck knows, a person hoisting himself up into the one braces with his... As anyone who has ever gotten into a pickup truck knows, a person hoisting himself up into one braces his foot on the rear running board, leans forward under the canvas canopy, and sort of rolls in. The man lying in wait inside the truck would take advantage of this natural tilt of the body. The minute the German's head protruded into the gloom, the ambusher would bend over him and wrap his arms under his chin, around his throat in a kind of reverse chokehold, and, carrying that into a throttle embrace, the ambusher would fall back flat on the mattress, which absorbed every sound. The backward fall, while gripping the German's head, would suffocate the German and break his neck instantly. One day, a female SS officer escaped from an English detention camp next to our base. After the British discovered that the officer had escaped, they sent out photographs of her taken during her imprisonment, front and side view, to all the military police stations. We went through the refugee camp and identified her. When we addressed her in German, she played the fool and said she would only knew Hungarian. That wasn't a problem. A Hungarian kid went up to her and said, "A ship carrying illegal immigrants from Hungary is about to sail for Palestine. Pack up your belongings quietly and come with us." She had no choice but to take the bait and went with us to the truck. During this operation, I sat with Zaro, Mir Zora, later an IDF general, in the back while Karmi drove. The order Karmi gave us was, when I get some distance to a suitable deserted place, I'll honk the horn. That will be the sign to get rid of her. That's what happened. Her last scream in German was, "Was ist los?" What's going on? To make sure she was dead, Karmi shot her, and we gave her body and the surroundings the appearance of a violent rape. In most cases, we brought the Nazis to a small line of fortifications in the mountains. There were fortified caves there, abandoned. Most of those facing their executions would lose their Nazi arrogance when they had heard that we were Jews. "Have mercy on my wife and children," in quotations. We would ask him how many such screams the Nazis had heard in the extermination camps from the Jewish victims. The operation lasted only 3 months, from May to July, during which time the Gmul killed somewhere between 100 and 200 people. Several historians who researched Gmul's operations maintain that the methods used to identify targets were insufficient and that many innocents were killed. On many occasions, those critics argue Gmul teams were exploited by their sources to carry out personal vendettas. In other cases, operatives simply identified the wrong person. Gmul was closed down when the British, who heard the complaints about the disappearances from German facilities, grasped what was going on. They decided not to investigate further, but to transfer the Jewish brigade to Belgium and the Netherlands, away from the Germans, and Haganah Command issued a firm order to cease revenge operations. The brigade's new priorities, according to the Haganah, not the British, were to look after Holocaust survivors, to help organize the immigration of refugees to Palestine in the face of British opposition, and to appropriate weapons for the Yishuv. They should really start using semicolons, because it's fucking stupid the amount of colons you got. Or not colons, but fucking commas. It's fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid. Yet, though they ordered I haven't seen one semicolon. A hard comma. Not one. Yet, though they ordered Gmul to stop killing Germans in Europe, the Haganah's leaders did not forsake retribution. The vengeance that had been halted in Europe, they decided, would be carried on in Palestine itself. Members of the German Tempelgesellschaft, the Templar sect, had been expelled from Palestine by the British at the beginning of the war because of their nationality and Nazi sympathies. Many joined the German war effort and took an active part in the persecution and annihilation of the Jews. When the war ended, some of them returned to their former homes in Sarona, in the heart of Tel Aviv, and other locations. The leader of the Templars in Palestine was a man named Gottlieb Wagner, a wealthy industrialist who assisted the Wehrmacht and the Gestapo during the war. A Holocaust survivor by the name of Shalom Friedman, who was posing as a Hungarian priest, related that in 1944 he met Wagner, who boasted that he was at Auschwitz and Birkenwald twice. When he was in Auschwitz, they brought out a large group of Jews, the youngest ones, and poured flammable liquid over them. I asked them if they knew there was a hell on earth, and when they ignited them, I told them that this was the fate awaiting their brethren in Palestine. After the war, Wagner organized attempts to allow the Templars to return to Palestine. Rafi Eaton, the son of Jewish pioneers from Russia, was 17 at the time. Here come exultant Germans who have been members of the Nazi Party, who is enlisted to the Wehrmacht. I'm going to spell this out. Wehrmacht. Wehrmacht. Some shit like that. An SS. And they want to return to their property when all the Jewish property outside was destroyed, he said. I'm starting to hate this book. Eaton was a member of a 17-man force from Haganah's special company sent to liquidate Wagner under a direct order from the Haganah High Command. The Haganah Chief of Staff, Yitzhak Sadeh, realized that this was not a regular military operation and summoned the two men who had been selected to squeeze the trigger. To encourage them, he told them about a man he had shot with his pistol in Russia as a revenge for a pogrom. On March 22, 1946, after painstaking intelligence gathering, the hit squad lay in wait for Wagner in Tel Aviv. They forced him off the road onto a sandy lot at 123 Levinsky Street and shot him. Haganah's underground radio station, Kol Yisrael, the voice of Israel, announced the following day the well-known Nazi Gottlieb Wagner, head of the German community in Palestine, was executed yesterday by the Hebrew underground. Let it be known that no Nazi will place foot on the soil of the land of Israel. Shortly thereafter, Haganah assassinated 2 other Templars in the Galilee. It says, it really does say that. Shortly thereafter, Haganah assassinated 2 other Templars in the Galilee and 2 more in Haifa. Why doesn't it say the Haifa? Fucking stupid book. Where the sect had also established communities. It had an immediate effect, Eaton said. The Templars disappeared from the country, leaving everything behind, and were never seen again. The Templars' neighborhood in Tel Aviv, Sarona, would become the headquarters of Israel's armed forces and intelligence services. And Eaton, an assassin at 17, would help found the Mossad's targeted killing unit. The killing of the Templars was not merely a continuation of the acts of revenge against Nazis in Europe, but signified a major change in policy. The lessons that the new Jews of Palestine learned from the Holocaust were that the Jewish people would always be under the threat of destruction, that others could not be relied upon to protect Jews, and that the only way to do so was to have an independent state. A people living with this sense of perpetual danger of annihilation is going to take any and all measures, however extreme, to obtain security, and will relate to international laws and norms in a marginal manner, if at all. These guys will take like one sentence and turn it into a whole page. From now on, Ben-Gurion and the Haganah would adopt, you might as well turn like the whole book into one sentence. From now on, Ben-Gurion and the Haganah would adopt targeted killings, guerrilla warfare, and terrorist attacks, as well as additional tools, above and beyond the propaganda and political measures that had always been used, in the effort to achieve the goal of a state and to preserve it. What had only a few years before been, for real, what had only a few years before been a means used by the outcast extremists of Lehi and the Irgun was now seen by the mainstream as a viable weapon. At first, Haganah units began assassinating Arabs who had murdered Jewish civilians. Then the militia's high command ordered a special company to begin personal terror operations, a term used at the time for the targeted killings of officers of the British CID who had persecuted the Jewish underground and acted against the Jewish immigration of the land of Israel. They were ordered to blow up British intelligence centers that acted against Jewish acquisition of weapons, and to take retaliatory action in cases where British military courts sentenced Haganah members to death. Ben-Gurion foresaw that a Jewish state would soon be established in Palestine, and that the new nation would immediately be forced to fight a war against the Arabs in Palestine and repel invasions by the armies of neighboring Arab states. The Haganah command thus also began secretly preparing for this all-out war, and as a part of preparations, an order code named Zarzir for Starling was issued, providing for the assassination of the heads of the Arab population of Palestine. I'm going to stop there.